Welcome back to another episode of SmoothBrainEDH, where we make the smoothest plays with the biggest brains. This week, we decided to bust out some budget decks, seeing what all we could do with $100 and some cardboard. Our first player today is Jason on Jadzi, Oracle of Arcavius. This is a Simic Landfall Storm deck, hoping to ramp like crazy and trigger Magecraft on Jadzi for some ridiculous value. He keeps a hand with 2 islands, a forest, a Search for Tomorrow, Wild Growth, Metallurgic Summonings, and Quadrix Apprentice. Up next is Caden on Atla Palani, Nest Tender. This Naya deck plans to cheat out a bunch of powerful creatures by creating eggs and sacrificing them with Atla Palani in the battlefield. He starts the game with the Plains, Rugged Highlands, Temple of Triumph, Sol Ring, Girid, Conclave Exile, Terastodon, and Thrasta, Tempest Roar. Third is Matt on Winota, Joiner of Forces. This Boros deck is focused around playing cheap, non-human creatures, then using those to cheat powerful humans in play with Winota's triggered ability. He keeps 2 mountains, Clifftop Retreat, Rabble Rousing, Goldmere, Village Bellringer, and Silver Ring Squadron. Last up is Chandler on Ganax, Astral Hunter with the Acolyte of Bahamut background. This Gruul deck is Dragon Tribal, hoping to ramp out some powerful dragons to swing at his opponents in the air. Chandler's starting hand is 2 mountains, a forest, Highland Forest, Jade Orb of Dragonkind, Escape to the Wilds, and Avenging Hunter. We're about to hop right into the game, but before that, go ahead and give us a like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any of our new content. We post new gameplay videos every week, so you do not want to miss out. Big shout out to our patrons. We really appreciate the support. Link to that Patreon is in the description, as well as links to the deck list, our social media, our podcast channel, and our public Discord server. Our channel is partnered with Dragon Shield, so if you'd like to pick up any new sleeves or match-related products, check out the affiliate link in the description. We are also partnered with Inked Gaming, so if you can make any custom playmats, we have an affiliate link for that in the description as well. Now, with all out of the way, on to the gameplay.
Before we get started, I'd just like to let you guys know I've caught some sort of head cold, so my voice will sound a little different, sorry. Jason starts off with a forest, and he'll suspend Search for Tomorrow. Caden plays a tap Temple of Triumph, and scries one to the bottom, and then passes to Matt. Matt plays a mountain, and passes to Chandler, who plays Highland Forest, and then passes back to Jason. Jason plays an island, and then will enchant it with Wild Growth, and then he'll cast Quadrix Apprentice. The turn is then passed to Caden, who plays a Rugged Highland as land for turn, gaining a life. After this, he'll cast a Sol Ring, and then he'll tap it for 2 to foretell a card, and then pass to Matt. Matt plays Clifftop Retreat, and then he'll tap for 2 and cast Goldmere. He'll then pass to Chandler, who starts off with a mountain, taps for 2, and casts Acolyte of Bahamut, then passes to Jason. The search will come off suspend, and Jason will cast it. This triggers Magecraft, which will find an island to Jason's hand. And then with the search, he finds an untapped forest to the battlefield. After this, he casts Growth Spiral, and will whiff his Magecraft trigger. He'll draw a card and put an island into play, and then he'll play an island as land for turn. He'll then cast Roiling Regrowth, sacrificing an island. Magecraft will trigger, finding him another island to hand, and then he'll tutor a forest and an island to the battlefield tapped. After this, he moves to combat and swings for 2 at Matt, and then he'll pass the turn to Caden, who will start off with the Plains as land for turn. He'll then cast Girid, which makes a Rhino upon ETB, and then he'll pass the turn to Matt, who starts off with another mountain, and he'll cast a Hazoret's Monument, and then he'll pass the turn to Chandler, who plays a forest, and then will tap for 3 to cast Jade Orb of Dragonkind, and then he'll pass the turn to Jason, who will immediately cast Archmage Emeritus. He'll then cast Explore. There are 2 Magecraft triggers, one draws him a card, and the other he whiffs a land on. Matt will respond to the Explore by path to exiling the Archmage. It resolves, and Jason finds a tapped island, and then the Explorer will resolve, and Jason will draw a card and play another island. After this, he casts Sack Daddy, and then will hit Matt for 2, and then pass the turn. Caden plays another Plains as land for turn, and he'll immediately move to combat and full swing at Jason. Populate token will also go at Jason. Moving to blocks, Jason will do Ye Old Sack Daddy trick underneath Girid, finding another island, and then he'll take 8 damage. He'll then tap for 3 and cast Commander's Sphere, and then he'll cast his Foretold Battle Mammoth. The turn is then passed to Matt, who will immediately cast Winota, and then move to combat. Oh yeah, and he also gets a 1/1. He'll swing 1 at Jason with his Mirror, and get 1 Winota trigger. It finds Loyal Apprentice, also going at Jason, and then Jason takes 3. The turn is then passed to Chandler, who will play another mountain, and then will tap for 5 to cast his commander, Ganax. He'll enter with a counter and gain hexproof, and then he'll also ETB and make a treasure token. The turn is then passed to Jason, who will start by tapping 3 lands, but a total of 4 mana, and then he'll cast Frantic Search, floating a blue. Magecraft finds him a forest, and then he draws 2 and discards Mnemonic Deluge and Boundless Realms, and then untaps those 3 lands. He'll then play another forest and cast his commander, Jadzi. He'll then cast Sprouting Vines, and with a storm count of 2, this will trigger Jadzi and his apprentice 3 times each. And when all is said and done, Jadzi will have put 3 islands to the battlefield, Quandrik's apprentice will have found an island and 2 forests, and then the 3 Sprouting Vines finds 2 forests and an island to his hand. And after all this land finding, Jason will pass the turn to Caden, who starts off with a basic forest. And then he'll tap for 2 and cast Ram Through, attempting to have his Battle Mammoth deal 6 damage to Jadzi. Jason will discard an island though, and return Jadzi to his hand. Caden will then move to combat and full swing at Jason, populating one of the rhinos, for a total of 20 damage, and Jason just takes it. Post-combat, Caden will cast Atla Palani and then pass the turn to Matt, who plays Den of the Bugbear. Then he'll move to combat, make a 1/1 Thopter, and he'll swing it and his non-human warrior at Jason, and his mirror at Caden, getting him 3 Winota triggers. His first hit is Imperial Recruiter, and when it ETBs, he tutors up Kiki Jiki to his hand. His next hit is Athalia's Lancers, and with it, he tutors Thalia to his hand. And the third trigger is a whiff. By the way, the Recruiter goes at Caden, and the Lancers go at Jason. Jason will block the 1/1 Warrior and take 5, and then Caden will block the Recruiter and take 1. The turn is then passed to Chandler, who will immediately tap for 3 and get to cast a reduced cost Avenging Hunter. He'll take the initiative and venture into the Undercity. Take a good look at the dungeon because I am not putting it up again. You got it? Good, continuing on. At the first level, he will tutor up a forest to his hand. The hunter also enters with a 1/1 counter and triggers Ganax again. Chandler will then play the forest as land for turn, and with it and 2 other lands, he'll cast a Dragon's Horde. And then, not wanting to risk losing the initiative, decides to not swing for lethal at Jason, and he'll just pass the turn. Let's move to Jason's turn and see if that was a mistake. It was! Jason casts Flood of Tears. Magecraft trigger finds Jason an island to hand, and then everybody picks up their permanents. After this, Jason will recast his Wild Growth, then we'll play a forest as land for turn, then we'll cast Jadzi again. He'll then pass the turn to Caden, who starts off by recasting Soul Ring, and then his Commander's Sphere, and then Atla Palani, and he'll pass to Matt after this. Matt will stop on Instep and cast Your Temple is Under Attack, and his chosen opponent is Chandler, so they both draw 2 cards. He'll then play a mountain as land for turn, and then he'll cast Golden Mirror and Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, and then pass the turn to Chandler, who will venture deeper into the Undercity, finding a Lost Well and scrying 2, 1 to the top and 1 to the bottom. He'll then play a forest as land for turn, and then recast Ganax, making a treasure when it ETBs. After this, he casts Magda, and then he'll pass the turn to Jason. Jason will tap for 6 mana and channel Shigeki, returning Mnemonic Deluge and Flood of Tears to his hand. He'll then play an island as land for turn, and recast Flood of Tears for 7 mana. Jadzi will trigger, revealing an opt, and he does not cast it. Flood of Tears will then resolve, and then he'll recast Wild Growth and pass to Caden. Caden will cast Soul Ring, then recast Commander's Sphere, and then he'll cast a Taurian Mauler. The turn is then passed to Matt, who will play a Snowplains, and then he recasts Winota, Mauler trigger. He'll then recast Loyal Apprentice, another Mauler trigger. Jason will respond though by casting Unsubstantiate, targeting Winota. And then Matt passes the turn to Chandler, who ventures deeper into the Undercity and finds a stash, making a treasure token. He'll then play a mountain as land for turn. Now into his main phase, Chandler will recast Ganax, making another treasure token, Mauler trigger, and then he'll recast Dragon's Horde, Mauler trigger, and then he'll cast his Acolyte of Bahamut, 1 more Mauler trigger, and he'll pass the turn to Jason, who plays another island, and then cast Jadzi again. He'll then drop Mnemonic Deluge, triggering Taurian Mauler, and his target is Frantic Search. And so he'll cast it 3 times, and in the process he floats mana each time, using his Wild Growth land in the process, so he'll draw 2 and discard 2 3 times, and he'll be left with 8 mana in his mana pool, 4 green and 4 blue, and then 3 lands untapped. The initial cast triggers Jadzi and reveals Jace's Sanctum, but he's tapped out so he can't pay the one to cast it. He'll then get 3 more Jadzi triggers from the copies, but they happen before he draws and discards or untaps his lands, so that Jace's Sanctum just stays there for all 3. Continuing on, with that 8 mana in his mana pool, he'll start off by casting Metallurgic Summonings, Mauler trigger. He'll then cast Temporal Fissure with a storm count of 3, so he gets 4 targets. Those targets are Taurian Mauler, Loyal Apprentice, Den of the Bugbear, and Ganax. He also gets a 5/5 construct and 4 Jadzi triggers. The first one reveals Dig Through Time, which he'll pay 1 to cast, which gets him another Jadzi trigger and an 8/8. This next Jadzi trigger reveals a forest, which goes to the battlefield, and then he resolves Dig Through Time. The next Jadzi trigger is a forest, then a Reclaim, which he will cast, targeting Boundless Realms, getting himself another Jadzi trigger. This one finds a forest, and he also makes a 1/1, and then he puts Boundless Realms on the top of his library, and the last original Jadzi trigger will resolve. And what do you know, it's a Boundless Realms, which he'll cast for 1 mana, and he'll make a 7/7 from this, and get one last Jadzi trigger, which flips into a Swarm Intelligence. And he also gets to search up 18 lands to the battlefield tapped. He's only got 17 left in his deck though, but they still go to the battlefield. Thankfully there are no more Jadzi triggers, and Jason really can't cast much else, so he'll pass the turn, but man, if he gets to untap again, he is probably winning the game. So, Caden will start his turn off with a Forest, he'll then cast Swiftfoot Boots, and then Torian Mauler again, and then Atla Palani. He'll then pass the turn to Matt, who plays his Den again. Then he'll cast Imperial Recruiter, tutoring up a Draenith Magistrate, which he will then cast, hoping it stops Jason somewhat. 2 Mauler triggers, and then he passes the turn to Chandler. Let's see if he can kill Jason. With the initiative, Chandler ventures into the Catacombs and makes a 4/1 Black Skeleton with Menace. He'll then play a Mountainous Land for turn, then recast Ganax, Mauler, and Dragon's Horde trigger, and also an ETB treasure token, and then he'll drop Scourge of Valkis, which will get Dragon's Horde and Mauler another trigger, and then when it ETBs, he makes a treasure and deals 2 to Jason's face. And then the turn is passed to Jason. And just so you guys all know, there are a lot of Metallurgic Summonings triggers. I'm not going to announce them all, but Jason will represent them. Who will start off with a March of Swirling Mist, where X is 1. Swarm Intelligence will copy it, and the targets will be Torian Mauler and Draenith Magistrate, and there will be 2 Jadzi triggers from this, and a Summonings trigger. Jason has the original copy target the Mauler, and the copy target the Draenith Magistrate, so the first Jadzi trigger resolves and reveals a Ponder. The Magistrate is still technically out, so he can't cast it, but then the copy March resolves, and Draenith Magistrate goes away, so with the second trigger, he'll pay 1 to cast the Ponder, which Swarm Intelligence will copy, so the stack will go Jadzi trigger, Ponder, Jadzi trigger, Ponder. So, the top of the stack is a Jadzi trigger, and it resolves, and it reveals Rampant Growth, which adds Rampant Growth, Jadzi trigger, Rampant Growth, Jadzi trigger to the stack. The next one is Elvish Mystic, which is cast, then Rampant Growth resolves, which is a fail to find, and then the next Jadzi trigger is Regrowth, which adds Regrowth, Jadzi trigger, Regrowth, Jadzi trigger to the stack. The first one to resolve will target Dig Through Time, and the second one will do Temporal Fissure. But before that, Jadzi trigger reveals Llanowar Elves, which is cast, and then one of the regrowths resolves. The next one reveals Finhorn Elves, which is cast, and then the second regrowth resolves. So the stack is now Rampant Growth, Ponder, Jadzi trigger, Ponder, March. Rampant Growth fails to find, so he shuffles, and then he'll shuffle again with the Ponder and draw a card. The next Jadzi trigger reveals Tireless Provisioner, which he will cast, and then he'll resolve his original Ponder, which he will shuffle again and draw. And then finally, the original March of the Swirling Mist resolves. He'll then cast a Telling Time, making the stack Telling Time, Jadzi trigger, Telling Time, Jadzi trigger. The trigger reveals Early Harvest, which Jason will gladly cast, and in response to it, he'll tap all of his lands. Early Harvest, Jadzi trigger, Early Harvest, Jadzi trigger is added to the stack. Harrow will then be revealed, which Jason is a little disappointed to see, but it lets him keep going, so he'll cast it, sacrificing an island. Harrow, Jadzi trigger, Harrow, Jadzi trigger is added to the stack. Courser of Krufix is revealed, which Jason will cast. Harrow copy resolves, fails to find, and then Cultivate is revealed and cast, adding Cultivate, Jadzi trigger, Cultivate, Jadzi trigger to the stack. Into the Royal is then revealed. Scourge of Valkis and Ganax are targeted, and it adds Into the Royal, Jadzi trigger, Into the Royal, Jadzi trigger to the stack, and then the next Jadzi trigger reveals Brain Freeze, which is the killing spell. And that is exactly where the table decides to pack it up. Now you might be thinking, this Brain Freeze can't kill anybody, but Jason's storm count is already insanely high, and he has Metallurgic Summonings out, which will let him return all instants of sorceries from his graveyard to his hand and keep going. So the rest of the table agrees to concede to Jason, and he is the winner of this budget video. Congrats, man. Well everyone, there you have it. Holy crap, Jadzi is incredibly powerful and took over that game extremely early. I'm not gonna lie, that's probably the most powerful budget deck I have ever seen. Let us know what you guys thought in the comments down below. Did you expect Jadzi to pull out that win? If you're interested in seeing the deck list, be sure to check out the links down below, as well as all of our other links. Hope you guys didn't mind my sick voice too much. I'm gonna be getting better soon, don't worry. But because of that, I'm gonna be signing off now. Hope you all have a smooth day.